In this video, I'm going to walk you through setting up your Canvas module. So hopefully you have something in mind. Before we proceed with that, we want to take a look at kind of the two styles that teachers use for setting up their modules. The one-page style is one way. The other way teachers set things up is by, in their units, they have several pages and quizzes as separate items before the next lesson. So you would primarily do this if you have a lot of content in a lesson that won't fit reasonably on a page. And also if you want to set up prerequisites, which won't apply to most of us. So for example, if I look at some of the content here, this web page mostly uses resources as links, and the assignments are listed there. So this can reasonably fit on one lesson page. So that is why the design of this is like that. Whereas, this approach gives you separate things under each lesson, and then it's good practice to indent so that students can tell the difference between Unit 1 Lesson 1, for example, and Unit 1 Lesson 2. So, moving forward, let's actually get to our modules. So pick a course in which you know the content of pretty well. Go over to modules. Now, all of this material here is template-based stuff. When you imported the template, this all came over. Moreover, it can probably be a little confusing, but they're trying to show you examples. So how would you delete this? Oh, by the way, first of all, you can put in your teacher content here and just never make it visible so that your lesson plans or even your answer keys or some other things are under a teacher module. So you don't want to publish that if you take that approach. But for example, if you want to delete a module, let's say if we want to delete all these modules, what you would do is you would click on the settings right here and then click delete, and you confirm it. And so that module is gone. And so we can do the same for some of these templates. If you find them useful, perhaps you don't want to delete them. So I'm just repeating this process. If you want to delete them, go ahead. If not, just leave them. So pause the video if you still need some time to delete. So let's start creating a module. I'm going to click the Add Module button, and I'm going to type probably a unit number and a description of the unit. That's pretty typical in a lot of curriculums. So I'm going to follow that format. And my first unit in my example is the internet. That's Unit 1. Feel free to type your unit. Lock and Till is probably not preferred when we're in school. When we're doing e-learning, this might be okay, but I oftentimes just like to make the module visible right before class starts because I don't want students working ahead. So that is up to you. I'm going to skip that for this example. So I'm going to click Add Module. And remember, moreover, that is a heading. So you can use this option here. You can drag files here to add to the module. Or what you could do is you can come up here and start adding to the module. This is the preferred way I like to do it. Now, let's say if you have a subsection, for example, you break your unit up into chapters, then if that's the case, after clicking that Add button, you would come down here and maybe just do a text header. If you're not going to do a text header, just skip this part. What is your header going to be called? I'm going to say it's Chapter 1. And this will look different from this one up above, so I'm not going to indent that one. When you have that done, if you like, click Add Item. So there we have like a chapter heading, for example. Now, what are your lessons under Chapter 1, for example? Well, come up here and click this Add button. What do you want to add this time? Well, think back to the two primary ways that I showed you how you can do these things. Most people start with pages as their lesson. Think of it as like a web page. So if I click here, I want to put in a page. I have some existing pages, but I'm going to click a new page, and then I'm going to put in a page name, and it's good to use a numbering scheme. So I'm going to start off, for example, with Unit 1, Lesson 1. That's how I'm going to do my numbering. And what is the title of this lesson? So something like that. Now at this point, I find it advantageous to indent because it'll make it a little bit different than the heading up above. So indent level 1, I click Add Item. And so there's your page. So now you can edit the page. So if I click on the page to open it, I can click up here for Edit. And this gives me a window which you probably are familiar with, in which you could start typing the progression of your lesson. So for example, one of the first things that I list are objectives. So objectives, and then you could use your bullet points up here to start listing your objectives. I'm not going to type them. If you want to type them, just go ahead and pause the video. But this is lesson planning and how you present information to students. So are you going to list vocabulary next? That's totally up to you. It's good to have like a consistent format for your lessons. Now it looks like I'm progressing through the one-page example for a lesson. I'm just typing stuff here. And then one of the things that we could do is I oftentimes have a resources section, and I could list some resources. You could insert a YouTube video and some other things as well. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm typing some resources. You can link some things up. So for example, if you have a link to a website, I'm just going to use the school website just to be simple. It doesn't make sense for this application. I can swipe over the text and then click up here on the link button and then put in the actual link. Oops, I'm typing very poorly here. You can insert links. So those are some of the options. If you created videos, you can embed those. And then usually what you want to have is an assignment section. Or you can bring in quizzes, discussions, modules. So the thing to point out though is these need to be created prior. Your assignments, quizzes, announcements, discussions, modules. All that should be created prior, and there's probably a separate video on creating these, okay, especially assignments and quizzes. So for example, if I wanted to put in an assignment, I'd click here, and I would select an assignment that I've already created. As you can see, I was experimenting. I click, and then I put in the assignment. Okay. So your modules should show the flow of your lesson. Even though you have an assignment in the assignment section right here, you should list it in your module section. Maybe before this, you were doing an online class discussion. So perhaps above, you want to put in a discussion link. I'll type the word discussion, and then you can come over here and find your discussion and click to add it. These are just some examples. Now you want to probably do some formatting as well. So this is the one-page lesson example. And you can just go through and do some formatting. It is the progression of the lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. If you like that method, go ahead with it, and maybe you can stop here. However, I'm going to continue on, so I'm going to go back to modules. I got that lesson page in. By the way, don't forget about visibility. That was in a previous video. If this is your first lesson and you want students to see it, make the module visible. And then you can make these visible if you like. Obviously, if it's the first lesson, you should have all three of those. The other approach, based off of this example here, creates many items under a particular lesson. So to illustrate that example, if you want to go with that route, you can click here, and I'm going to add, for example, a heading, for example. Let me see. If I click here, I can go with a text header, and I could say Unit 1, Lesson 2, and let's think what my Lesson 2 would be about. Let's say sending binary messages. Sending binary messages. I'll leave that typo. So that's maybe a heading. So I have that heading, and then I would create separate pages underneath. So for example, I could click here, and I might have a page with my, I don't know, lesson overview. I might want to indent it. Feel free to pause the video if I'm going too fast. And on this page, you can maybe put in your lesson objectives and vocabulary, or you can do vocabulary as a separate page. So we're accomplishing the same tasks, but we're doing them just a little bit differently. For example, if I were to create a separate vocabulary page, I can do that. Add that item. And there you go. By the way, I could increase or decrease the indent. Here's your edit button. You can move it around this way. Remove. Sharing to Commons deals with, you could share it to yourself or you can share it to other teachers. Let's say, for example, you wanted to have a discussion next. I'll click this button here, and I will put in a discussion. And let's say if I already created this discussion, I click to select that and click Add Item. So, two different ways of doing things. This is the one page per lesson example. This is the multiple pages per lesson example. And students would progress through all of these. Your indentions become very important if you go this route. So that is a general overview of modules. Hopefully that's been a little bit helpful. You have to design the way of doing your modules, but you should follow a basic protocol of creating your lessons. Feel free to reach out if you have questions.